wouldn't it be great for you to talk to somebody before you start a new job, someone who has already been there, who knows the ropes, to give you advice, to give you some guidance, so you can have the best possible launch to that position? Good thing you found this video, because that's exactly what we're talking about right now. Hey 1% Nation, I'm Jake Voorhees, and you are watching the 1% Engineer Show, where we empower young engineers to rise to the top 1% of their career. If this is your first time to the channel, guys, consider subscribing, because I release videos 3 or 4 times a week for engineering student success. And if you want the 1% Engineer Kit, which is a bunch of ebooks and resume templates, comment below and I'll send you a copy. And in this show, I'm giving a recap, a summary of my lunch with Paul Tabanowski, who is one of the reasons why this community exists, one of the reasons why it's called the 1% Engineer, because I mentored Paul throughout his road to graduation, which was last spring, and I used to always say, if you do all this stuff, Paul, you're going to be ahead of 99% of other engineers, and therefore this community was forged. But what we're talking about today is how Paul started his first full-time job about 90 days ago, and he's learned a ton of stuff. He's in construction management, so he's on site in Maryland, and he has a lot of takeaways already. Only working for 3 months, he's learned so much and knows that there's an incredible amount of knowledge to be absorbed and to learn from here. I gave a summary of his biggest takeaways, the biggest things he's learned in just 3 months working the position he has so far. And I've summarized them for you in this video. And number 1 is communication. Being in construction management involves a ton of project coordination, phone calls, human coordination, and communication in general. Blah, 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 blah. Paul has learned how massively important communication skills really are. And within that, one of the biggest pieces of advice that he would give to 1% Nation is how you word things and playing the political game. For example, if you're doing some project coordination and you have to come to somebody to check their work or validate some numbers, you want to be very careful how you word things such that you're not indicating blame and that person isn't on the defensive. So Paul would say to make sure that you're careful about how you word things so you don't upset anyone and get into trouble. Also within communication, Paul talked about how you have to figure out what type of personality you are, look into yourself, become self-aware, and understand that all the people that you talk to in your job, they're going to have a unique personality as well. And there's certain people that you can act a certain way with, certain people who, for example, say they're awkward and a little bit more shy. You're not really going to be the same type of person as somebody who's totally comfortable talking to people and you can just be yourself. So you kind of have to play to the energy of the other person, play to the personality of the other person. And this is just something that comes with time, comes with experience, just like anything else. Practice, iteration, rinse and repeat. But these are things that Paul's thinking about right now in terms of his communication skills, learning how he can talk to certain people and making sure that he's wording things very carefully such that the message, the intention of his communication is there and is strong, but he's not misspeaking in a way that someone's going to be upset, someone's going to be defensive, someone's going to believe that Paul is questioning their work. Number 2 is workplace prioritization. And Paul gave another good example of this, but he has pulled in lots of different directions throughout the day, throughout the week. He has his boss, he has his superintendent who is managing the project on site. You have all these foremen, you have other people who work for his company that may be calling him and asking for his time via email or maybe even on the project site. But making sure that you're doing the most important things first and working your way down the list is very important. And if you need to do one thing versus the other, somebody might get upset, but as long as you communicate that to the person and talk about where their item lies in your queue of things to do, as long as you tell them that, okay, well, I have to do this, and I have to do that, and then I can get to their thing so that they have an expectation of your time management, of your list of things to do, of your productivity queue. This is really communication advice, again, within time management, within prioritization. But Paul gave an example that even if you can't get something done on time when somebody needs it, say by the end of the day, as long as you communicate that and put that out on the table, you're not going to get in trouble, they're not going to be upset, but you have to make sure that you're doing the things that your bosses want and then you work your way down such that you're not letting someone down, particularly if it's urgent, particularly if it's important, if it's high on the list. And Paul talked about staying focused and really making sure that he can crush that prioritization list and just work your way down and then have a good day, smash it, no one's upset, you finish all your tasks, things like that. Number 3 is leadership. Paul has learned a lot about leading by example, by watching his boss, by watching other leaders at his job, and he used a really good example on a construction site. The construction workers are required to wear gloves, among other safety devices, but when the engineers and the inspectors have to walk around who aren't actually construction people, they have to wear gloves too, and they're not actually doing any work, so it would be really easy for them to just say, oh, I don't need the gloves, I don't want to wear these. But he noticed that his boss always wears gloves, and what he's doing is he's leading by example. He's setting a positive example, because certainly if that boss goes to the job site and doesn't wear those safety gloves, all the other workers aren't going to do it either. So you have to make sure that you're actually practicing what you preach and that you have that best foot forward. You actually are doing what you talk about. You're following the rules as well as a leader. So that's really important. I'm glad that Paul mentioned this. And he talked about a book that the company's having the engineers read, and it's called The Collaboration Way. It's only about 100 pages. Paul's read it and he's learned a lot. But this book talks about a lot of these things: how to be a leader, how to empower your team, how to communicate like a leader, make sure that you're listening, making sure that you're learning about how to communicate with different people. So I would check that book out. I'm going to add it to my list of books to read as well. So thanks for that advice, Paul. Tip number 4, and this is actually another communication technique, and I mentioned it a couple seconds ago, but it is to listen better. Paul talked about how sometimes he'll get a task or get some information from his boss, and sometimes he has to go back and re-ask the same question, and then his boss is like, well, dude, you already asked me that. And it's pretty easy when someone's explaining something to you or you're learning something in class to be kind of listening, but with part of your brain you're not really paying attention, you're thinking about something else. So you really have to make sure that you're listening and you're concentrating on what people say. And if you can't remember all the information about what they're saying, then you should be taking notes so you don't have to go back to them and ask the same question twice or maybe even 3 times in some situations before you actually get it. So again, thanks for that advice, Paul. And tip number 5, this wasn't actually a suggestion from Paul, but I'm going to throw it in here because I know about his experience so far. Sometimes employers will test you and they will give you longer hours or more work or a lot more challenging things on the front end. And what they're trying to do is they're going to see how hard you're actually willing to work, what you're actually capable of doing, how much value you can truly add to this company. They're seeing what they can actually throw at you and how much you can truly withstand. And some people will crack, some people will break, some people will want to quit, some people will cry, some people will complain. But Paul survived. And when he actually went forward and talked to his boss, he was like, hey man, is this always going to be like this? What's really going on? The boss actually admitted, he's like, dude, we've been testing you. So he endured that initial storm, but sometimes that's what you have to go through, guys, to prove yourself and to really build a good reputation with a company, to communicate how much you actually want to be a part of this team, want to be a part of this organization, you want to succeed, you want to rise to the ranks and become the top 1% of your field. That's sometimes what you have to go through, guys. So I hope this video helped you guys. Comment below if you have any questions about starting a full-time position or what it's really like working full-time as whatever type of engineer you are striving to become. And if this video helped you guys, consider subscribing because I release videos 3 or 4 times a week for engineering student success. Thanks for watching the 1% Engineer Show, guys, and stay hungry on your quest to become a 1% engineer. Cheers!